All right, we're breaking down the Heat now, but remember, they are built on a culture of players. Which team is up, which team is on the horizon, and which team is just over the hill. But what happens after the sun sets on your second era-defining empire? What do you do when the confetti stops falling and the empty bottles of champagne are long since swept up under a rug? As it turns out, the answer is one, be miserable, and then get to building again. That is Pat Riley's Heat culture. George Sedano has more.
There's winning and there's misery. That's the phrase famously coined by Miami Heat president and living legend Pat Riley. The mantra for the franchise that he steered for 25 years.
I hated to lose. I always thought there would be severe consequences for me if I lost. I think at times I tried to conjure up inside of me an emotion that was unhappy because it made me miserable because that's what I took to my players every day.
During one 9-season stretch in Miami, the Heat went to 5 finals appearances and accumulated 3 championships.
It's back-to-back titles for the Heat.
But with all that winning, there's been some misery too.
You want to trend something? I'm pissed, okay? So go ahead, get it out there.
Summer of 2014, LeBron James left Miami to return to Cleveland. Next, Chris Bosh was forced into early retirement after an unfortunate health issue with blood clots. And then, the best player in franchise history, Dwayne Wade, and the Miami Heat decided to part ways via free agency. Even Riley himself admitted Miami had slipped. But out of that misery came a new incarnation of winning, building this Heat team on drafted and undrafted players alike. And then, with an assist from Wade, Riley landed his new minister of culture, Jimmy Butler. One season later, Riley, Spoelstra, Butler and company have found themselves in the Eastern Conference Finals facing the Boston Celtics. Now, everyone is talking about Riley and the Heat culture.
If you don't compete defensively and you don't give extra effort plays, you're not going to play. That's just how it goes when you play for the Heat.
We've heard Tyler Hero say, we just follow Jimmy Butler.
A lot of the young guys do 4 a.m. workouts. That's just a different level.
That's worked out for the Miami Heat so far.
Riley describes the culture this way, as being the hardest working, best conditioned, most professional, unselfish, toughest, meanest, nastiest, most disliked team in the NBA. And the Godfather always leads by example.
Pat Riley, I mean, you and I, we go way back. You are just competitive as I am.
Riley was once in the business of coaching the Showtime Lakers through a bitter 80s rivalry against Danny Ainge and the Celtics. Then years later, now a Celtics executive, Ainge criticized then Miami forward LeBron James on a local Boston radio show. Riley made it personal, issuing a statement through a Miami team spokesman that said, quote, Danny Ainge needs to shut the up and manage his own team. He was the biggest whiner going when he was playing, and I know that because I coached against him. It's Riley's kind of culture that has driven the Heat to 8 conference finals and now sit 1 series away from Miami's 6th NBA Finals during Riley's tenure. At 75, one thing is always clear. Pat Riley has made a culture of turning misery into winners.
Good stuff, George. The Godfather, Pat Riley, and the culture with the Heat is why we certainly can't ever count him out. But why don't other teams have the culture? Why haven't they been able to cultivate something similar?
You know, you have to give Eric Spoelstra so much credit. I mean, everybody kind of overlooked him because he had LeBron James and D. Wade and Chris Bosh and they won those championships. But just, I mean, he was a video assistant. Right? He's worked his way all the way up the food chain, and his attention to detail combined with Pat Riley, his leadership, also ownership leadership, and Nick Arison, this team has the right foundation for success because they work for it each and every day. Plus, they also translate the energy of Jimmy Butler.
Absolutely, and you heard the term Godfather used, and I've affectionately called the Miami culture the Miami Mafia because once you join, you're into the death. And when you go play against them, you see it. You see Alonzo in the front office. You see, I've seen their family just mushroom and grow until it created a culture that can land a LeBron James and a Chris Bosh. But here's my question to the world, and I know I'm showing my age here. Do you guys believe Pat Riley is a better coach or executive? And I'm gonna start with you, Paul Pierce, in the history of the league. I've seen you from Inglewood. You saw those 5 championships as a coach with the Showtime Lakers, with Magic and Kareem. You also saw him do it with Wade and Shaq. Better coach or executive, Pat Riley?
I'm going to say he's equally both, Jay. You know, he was able to do it with the Lakers and then as a coach. And then he comes there and does it as a coach in Miami. But then as a GM, you know, he brings in LeBron. He puts together that big three, and they had an unbelievable run. I mean, that's just almost like what he did coaching, because when you can have that type of success, when you can bring a championship as a coach and a GM, I mean, what more can you say about the guy? And they do have the culture, and it starts from the top, and it works its way all the way around. He just has that demeanor that, you know, when the guys that he handpicks, they have to have this type of competitive demeanor, and you see it all the way down the line, and that's because of Pat Riley.
I'll agree with him on this. I think both. You know, first off, getting LeBron James to Miami, no little feat right there, okay? And then look at the talent that they've been able to draft. I mean, you're able to get Duncan Robinson. Like, I called college basketball. I watched Duncan Robinson play in college. You didn't think he was going to be a starter in the NBA? Get in Tyler Hero, right? Like a guy that didn't go like number 1 or number 2, but finding those value draft picks. And then also Kendrick Nunn, who played for the Golden State Warriors G League team the year prior. I mean, finding the diamonds in the rough and building the right ancillary pieces around the foundational piece in Jimmy Butler, that's what he's great at doing.
But also taking attributes of a player that aren't necessarily about stats. Your work ethic, your accountability, your discipline, and the ability to now put that into a team. Jimmy Butler's squads that he left got worse in Chicago, in Minnesota, and in Philadelphia. And we wondered, was he the problem? Now they're all watching him in the conference finals, and we're praising the culture that he joined because it's a perfect match.
Tweeting things like, what if? Real talk. I mean, Joel Embiid, like, what if?
Yeah. I mean, Jimmy Butler right now, the perfect fit at Miami.